Hello, everyone. You're welcome to another SQL session. So, this session could be a bit lengthy, so let's just cut to the chase to save some time. All right, so now I would want to visit one of the tables we have created, and that is the students registration table. Okay, select all from students registration. Oh, cool. So, this are the contents of our students registration table. We have we have all this. All right, now there is a scenario I would like to paint. Okay, so in this table we have the cost column. How about a situation whereby we have this academy, say academy XYZ, would like to academy XYZ would like or say would like, yeah, to show more details. Let me say store a more detailed information about their courses. Right, so let's say, for example, not just having the course name. Okay, so we could also have something like um, the course name will be there, but let's say we have something like the course code. All right, so they need information on their course code, on the course name. They want to put all these. Okay, it could also have duration, the course duration, the instructor, and so on. Okay, so let's assume they want this information to also be reflected in their database. They want a detailed information about their courses. Okay, now let's go back to this table. We could see that we have this table about the registration details, and we have course. All right, now we have data engineering, data science, HR analytics, and the rest. So these are the courses that are being offered by Academy XYZ. Okay, but is it possible to reflect all these other information about the data engineering course on this table? Is that possible? So that means we are also going to show the course code. The course name is already there, which is data engineering and likes. That means we are also going to reflect the course code, the duration, and the instructor. So is that possible to be reflected on this table? Yes, it is very possible. It is possible, but it is not recommended. Okay, so it is possible. It is possible. Show to show detailed information about a course on or um, about a value on a table of other values. Okay, so it is possible, but not recommended. All right, so what we are saying is that if we want to make that possible, what it just means is we have to go to the definition of the table, and then we have to add some extra columns to this. So that means for the course, we are going to have course name after this. There's going to be another column called course name. There's going to be another column called course code. Okay, this is course name already. So there's going to be another column called course code, another column called instructor, and all that details. Okay, they will have their columns attached to this. But is that necessary? It could be necessary to have that in a database, but it is not recommended to have that in a table that have other values representing something else. So that is going to cause another thing called redundancy. Okay, so repetition of those things. So what it means is that for every location where we would see data engineering, we are going to have all those information in all those columns, the same information. So for everywhere we see data science, we would have data science, the same instructor, the same course code, the same content, which would be like a repetition of information, and that is called redundancy. All right, that is not what we need in a database. Okay, in a data warehouse, it could be expected, it could be okay, but in the database, it is not okay. All right, so because data warehouse is used for analytical process more often, while database is used for transactional processes. Okay, so redundancy is something that is frowned at in transactional databases, okay, which is OLTP. Okay, so they are frowned at in transactional databases. So how could you reduce this redundancy effect? Okay, that is why terminologies or activities like normalization comes into play, which we are going to discuss in one of our sessions later on. Okay, but for today, let us see what we can do here. So that means Academy XYZ would have to create, they would want to create courses table. Okay, that is the recommended way. So they should create a table that is going to reflect a create courses table to contain all the detailed information of each course. All right. So now let us go ahead in creating this table. So what we want to do is to create the course. We want to create a table that is going to have the course code. Then it's going to have, let's do this. It's going to have the course name, right? It's going to have the duration. Okay, it's going to have the instructor. All right, yes, so that's what we need. Okay, but we also need something like the course ID. Okay, so something unique to reflect these values. So the first thing we will do is to create this table. So to create this table, we have to do our definition. Okay, so we are going to say create table, and this table's name is going to be courses, and courses is going to have the course ID. All right, it's going to have the course ID, and the course ID should be serial. All right, and that should be the primary key. Then it should have the course code. All right, the course code, and the course code should be um the course code could be yeah, let's say a string, right? Then we have the course name. The course name is going to be a string, and let's say 30 characters. Then we have the duration. Duration too would be string because something like 12 weeks, 10 weeks. All right. So do this. Then we have the instructor, which also should be a string. Okay, so now we have defined the table, and let us go ahead in creating it. Okay, so I will just copy this, and let's go into put the magic command, and let's create the table courses. All right, so now we have our table courses being created. Okay, now we have table courses being created. All right, so let me go back to the notes. Okay, now that we have this, how can we connect the cost table cost table to a student registration table. All right, that is the big question right now. So how can this happen? All right. So okay, so now to achieve this, what we need to do is to establish. So we need to establish a relationship. We need to establish a relationship between the student registration, okay, between the student registration, between the student registration and the courses table. All right, that's what we need to do. Okay, then, but to achieve this, all right, to achieve this, we would need this. Okay, to achieve this, we would need to add a foreign key. So I would introduce us to what foreign key is. So we need to add a foreign key column, all right, to the student registration table. Okay, so we need to add a foreign key column to the student registration table. All right, okay, cool. All right, now when we have done that, we are going to connect. Okay, so the students, so what we are going to do is the foreign key, all right, the foreign key is going to refer is going to refer to the primary key column, primary key, yeah, to the primary key, or let's say primary key column, okay, to the primary key column of the courses. I know this is looking like a heavy thing right now, but it's simple. It's just for you to understand what it is. We have the course table, all right, and we have the student registration table. Now, how can we connect this course table to the student registration table? That is the issue. Okay, so for us to do the connection, what it means is that we are establishing a relationship. That's what it means. We are establishing a relationship between the course table and the student registration. We will talk about relationship in a deeper level in another session. But for now, just understand that what we are trying to do here is to establish a relationship. So a relationship is more like a connection between these two. So to establish a relationship means we have to create a common ground between the course table and the registration table, the student registration table. Okay, so to achieve this, we have to use something, we have to introduce a concept called foreign key. Okay, foreign key is not just a concept, foreign key is also a constraint, just like the primary key and the rest, but it is in these cases of creating relationships that we go into foreign keys. Okay, now let me explain what a foreign key is. Okay, so let's do this. What is a foreign key? So a foreign key is a constraint. Okay, so first of all, know that foreign key is a constraint. Okay, so it is a constraint, and we've talked about constraints and what they do. They enforce integrity, right? So it enforces, all right. So in any kind of constraints we define, the term enforcing something is going to be there, and the total the end goal for all constraints keys are to enforce, to make sure there is integrity of data. Okay, so in this case, foreign key is definitely a constraint, but it is used to um enforce. Okay, it is a constraint that enforces relationship. Okay, it enforces relationship between two tables, two or more tables. Okay, because it's all right. So it enforces relationship between two or more tables. All right. So let us go into some form of practicals. Let me put off this video and let's see this. Okay, now let's see what we can do. We have created the table and let's insert some values into this table. So I had like a seed data for that. Let me see. Yes, so I have this to insert data into that table. And so I would just quickly go through that because to save us some time in doing bulk insert. Okay, so now this is insert into course, course name, course duration, course instructor. Okay, so we have duration instructor. So let's edit this to duration and edit this to instructor. So the column names would be aligned, else it will give us an error. So is there any other thing? The course ID is serial and it's primary key, so we don't need to put it there because it will automatically generate the data. Okay, now this is done. Okay, so now let us see the contents of um, our course table. So I'll say select all from courses. The courses or just courses. Okay, cool. So when I run this, I would see that yes, so I have my course ID, the course code, the course name, duration, instructor. Okay, so how are we going to continue with this? The next thing we are trying to do now is to create that relationship. Remember what we talked about in our notes. Okay, so we said that we the idea here is that we'll need to add a foreign key column to the student registration. Okay, so this is what we are doing. We are trying to establish the relationship. So that means we have to go to the student registration and add a foreign key column to the student registration. So let us start with that. Okay. So, but we'll do these two together, okay? Because it says the foreign key is also going to the foreign key is going to refer to the primary key column of the courses. All right. So this is the method of creating foreign keys. So, but let's see that in actual terms. Right. So because we have already created this data or this table, it will be best to just drop the table. Okay. So I would drop the table, and you could use alter to add constraints to the table, okay, and include your foreign key. But the challenge here is there's a tendency that the information on that table does not tally with the constraint of foreign key, so it will have issues. Okay, so now I would I would drop my student registration table, drop table, students registration. Okay, so let's go back to the definition of that. Okay, so look at this. So this is how we defined our table. The ID is primary key. So this is what we want to do. We want to make this course the foreign key, but there are just very few steps to ensure the connection is going to be valid and successful. So the first thing is this. Okay, so to ensure to ensure a proper um or let's say a successful relationship between tables, okay, using foreign keys, all right, using foreign keys. Um, So to do this, the first thing you have to do is that the child table, I would explain this now. The child table should have, okay, or let me say, let me just use, let me start with the foreign key should have the same data type. You have the same data type with its reference key in the parent table. Okay, so that's that is the first one. Okay, then the next thing is that the reference key or the reference column with its reference key in the parents column. Okay, I'll say the reference column. Okay, in the parent table. Okay, now the reference column must be, no, it must. Let's go a little milder. The reference column should be unique. Okay, should be unique, but the it is recommended, the recommendation is recommended constraints is primary key. All right, so what it means is that when the table you are referencing this to should be unique. Okay, so it should have a unique constraints, but we recommend using primary key because if you can see that the foreign key, according to what was written, the foreign key is going to refer to the primary key column of the courses. So you could say the primary key or unique or a unique, okay, unique key, or yeah, a unique, so it's going to refer to the primary key or a unique column in the courses table, okay. So let us just get into the practical. All right, so now I would explain all those things as we are creating this table. So the course table, the course column here is a string. Remember? Now we want to connect this to, let me just get this definition and take it where, let me just take it here because since it's close. Okay, so I want to connect this student registration to these courses. So we said the best recommendation is to use the primary key, okay, and the primary key should be connected to this particular column, right? So that means we need this course. This course here is going to be like a representation of this table inside this table. Okay, so it's like an ambassador. So the course is an ambassador of the courses table, okay, in the student registration table. All right, so the first thing we need to do is that this data type should be the same with the column we are referring to here. So what the column want to refer to here is the primary key here, and that is the course ID. And we know that the course ID is serial, so the data type is integer, right? So that means if we use string, it would not connect, okay? So we say it should be integer, all right? So now after that, then we need to do something here that would say that we are connecting a table to this table. So to do that, this is where we declare our foreign key constraint. So I will start by saying foreign key, and so I am saying I have a foreign key on this table, okay? So it's like a foreigner. So it's foreign key. So I have a foreign key on this table. What key is that? It is the cost column, right? So I would say it is the course column. So to recognize this course column, so recognize this course column as the foreign key. All right. Recognize this course column as the foreign key. Now, that is not all. I also need to reference it to the table. So I'll say references, and the references is the table is the courses table, right? Now, what column in the courses table am I referring to? It is the ID column. This statement does it all. So first of all, it sees that this course column is a foreign key here. Then, as it is a foreign key, what table are you referencing it to? I'm referencing it to the courses table, and it should be the ID. Okay, so when I run this, it tells me column ID referencing in key constraints does not exist. Okay, so why is that so? All right, so let me go here. Okay, so because the courses, we called it course ID, okay, and not ID. So it does not, it has gone through the table and seen that there is no column called ID there. So that's why it's giving me this error. So I would have to say that this should be course ID. And when I do this, it should go. So this is done. All right. So now we have our student registration table having a component of the courses table. So it is, there is a relationship between these tables just by this line that we have done, and we'll see how they are related. So the first thing I would do is I would like to insert some seed data into that. So I should have seed data for that. So the student registration, I think I have them somewhere here. Okay, so I will just copy these and I would paste here. But I have to check this, okay? Because what I did was this in, remember I changed this from, I changed the courses or the course column from string to integer, because what it means is that it will use the ID column of the courses table to reflect. So let's just change this to, else it's going to have an error because data type is not going to be the same. Okay, I think where do we have the courses? Where do we have the courses? Is that source of joining, or something is wrong somewhere? Source of join, it should be course before source of joining. Um, oh, okay, okay. I think this has already, we've already done that. So this is the joining batch, which is June, and then course is 1, 2. Yeah. So this is what we are doing. All right. So now when I run this, it should work. So 5 rows affected. So the let's see the student registration table. Select all from student registration. Okay, so now we have the students registration table. You can see our courses. Okay, so instead of showing data engineering, data science, analytics, all those things, we decided to just have integers. Okay, so that if it is 1 here, our table says, will tell us that, okay, what it means is that that person is offering a data engineering course because the course ID for data engineering is 1. So if we are looking for who is offering HR analytics, we'll just look for the course ID 3. So when we go to this table, so that means this person is offering HR analytics based on the number that is done here. So we can see that it is connected. So that is when you are learning about joins in SQL, you would see how you could get more information from the other table through this table, okay, by joining the tables to bring out the detailed information about this. So we will do that when we are talking about joins. But in this case, you are to understand how relationships of table occur with the foreign key. Okay, you have to understand how relationships of a table occurs with a foreign key. All right. Now there are a few things you also need to understand that you can see that in this table we have just five course IDs. Okay, so that means if you want to insert a data that has something above or that does not exist here, it will reject it. So let's try that. So I will just copy one of these. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll just copy one of these data sets. Let me copy one of these insert values, and let's just say copy here, and let's we want to try and insert a data that maybe would have maybe a different course ID that is not on the courses table. You know, this is the registration, student registration table. Okay. So the first thing is I would have to add something here because we put a unique constraint here. So if it sees the same email, it will reject that. But what we are looking for is this uses the course ID is 1. All right. So let's say we want to do course ID 7. You know, 7 does not exist here. All right. The course IDs are 1 to 5. Okay. Because these tables are connected, when I run this, it tells me no, okay, this is not the error. It tells me there's an error at the end of input, which means okay, I have a comma. Since it is a single insert, it should not be so. What was there? Okay. So I'll just remove the comma. All right. So when I run this, it tells me insert or update on table. Student registration violates foreign key constraints. Okay. Why? Because the key course 7 is not present in table courses. Have we seen that? That this is not present in the table courses, but this is the student registration telling us that this key does not exist on another table. Okay. So that is the power of relationship between tables, and that's what foreign key can achieve for us. If I change this to maybe one of those columns, I could say, let me just put say 4, would see that it's worked. All right, because it exists on that table. All right, so now there is one more thing we need to see that I would like to show us. So we have one, two, three, four, five. We kind of have all the columns. Okay. So I would want to delete one one of these values here. Let's say I want to delete courses with the course with say 4, the fourth um the row that has course 4. Okay, so let me just do that. So I would say um SQL. So I would delete from I would delete from the student registration. Okay, I'll delete from student registration where course is 4. Okay, so when I do this, it has deleted 2 rows. Okay, so when I run this, I would see that there is no course that has 4. Okay, yeah, so you're like, so what about these, right? Like, what do we get from this? We already know what delete is. So this is what I want to show us. If we go to the table, we see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But look at what is going to happen. Let's say that I want to delete from this table. You can see how we successfully deleted from here, right? So I want to delete from this products, this courses table, and I say delete from courses, right? Where the course ID. where the course ID equals, let's say, 5. Notice what is going to happen. It's giving me an error. It says it cannot. Okay. Why? Because this student registration key, this course key exists on another table called student registration. Okay. So because that key is being reflected here, remember what constraint is meant to do is to enforce integrity, okay, to bring integrity of data. So imagine we removed this from the course table, okay, say there is no more data science here. Let's say you want to stop data science, but on this table, a student is offering data science. That information is kind of conflicting, so it doesn't align. So as long as this ID is represented here, it will refuse to delete it from here because it will tell you that the table is already using this information. So how can you now say that this information no longer exists with you? Okay, because that table is referencing that information to your table. So excuse me, you can't delete. You remember we deleted 4, right? Let's see what's going to happen if we say delete 4. It is successful. It deleted the 4 because when it checked the tables that are depending on it, there is no row or there is no entity that is referencing this row there. All right. So it will delete it graciously. All right. So those are the kind of things that you achieve with the foreign key constraints. Okay, so we'll just have a little recap on what we've done. It's kind of a lot, so I would advise that you kind of replay the video and watch it over, and as you're watching it, also try to get your hands dirty with it, practicalize it. Okay, so now we've seen that we the times that foreign key comes on board is when we are creating multiple tables that we would like to relate with. Okay, we want those tables to relate with each other, so that is when we introduce the constraint of foreign key, because foreign key is used to enforce relationship. Okay, so we said the foreign key enforces relationship between two or more tables. All right, so in a particular table you could also have foreign keys in multiple columns referring to different tables. All right, so when we're going into that in a deeper way, would show you that. All right, now we also said to ensure relationship between tables, we use foreign keys. Okay, so I remember I mentioned parent table, and yes, so let's just discuss the parent and child table as the last thing before the end of this session. So parent versus child table. Okay, so now the thing is the parent table is the table that is being referenced. The table that is being referenced, that's the parent table. In our case, is the courses table, right? So the table that is being referenced, okay? Or you could also say the table that has, or you could also say the table that has the primary key column, okay? Table that has the primary key column to be connected with. Okay, it's just the same thing we wrote above, it's just maybe a different way that's to be connected with. Okay, so that's that's the parent table. All right, so in our case, the parent table is the course table. So when we say the child table is the other table. So the child table is the table that contains the foreign key. So I think that's the easiest way to understand that. The table that has the foreign key. Okay. So in our case here, the table is the student registration table. All right. Student registration table. Okay. So like I said earlier on, it would be nice if you go through the video again and watch it and then practicalize it. You would see all these things and understand them better. Okay, so thank you very much for this session, and we'll meet in other sessions. Bye.